follow my lead. We on the road to achieve
success and settle for less.
no need. If you could dream, you can achieve what you believe.
Yo, what's good? I'm Body Cruise, your boy D Wills here, coming at y'all giving another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about DOMS and that no pain, no gain type mentality in the gym and how it could possibly lead you getting hurt instead of actually getting gains, alright? So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, I'll start by saying this. There's nothing wrong with necessarily having the slight soreness or discomfort 24 to 48 hours post-workout. I mean, that's pretty much normal to be expected for the most part, especially when you're performing exercises that you've never done before. You know, your body has a way of making you feel that the very next day, so that's a little bit different. However, there is a difference between slight soreness or discomfort and then this aching, nagging type pain that lasts 5 to 7 days post-workout. That is usually not a good thing. That's probably a sign that you've overworked your muscles too much and you probably need to dial things back a bit. Now, most people will gauge the effectiveness of their workout by that particular pain or soreness that they feel the 24 or 48 hours post-workout. They'll pretty much use that as a way to gauge whether their workout has been successful or not. But that really doesn't have anything to do with whether the workout is successful or not, really. It can, but again, only if it's to the extreme circumstances of it just being extremely painful, then that's usually not a good thing. Now, that pain that they feel is, as I've already said in the beginning of the video, it's DOMS. All right, DOMS is basically delayed onset muscle soreness. Now, I'll say most people have a common misconception about DOMS and exactly what it is. They think basically that it comes from the accumulation of lactic acid, which is basically that burning type feeling that you feel in your muscles or the pump. They think that it's basically the accumulation of that. However, lactic acid is already cleared out of your body 1 to 2 hours after you get finished working out, so that's not the case at all. It's not lactic acid. Now, that pain that you feel from DOMS is basically the structural damage to the muscle tissue that interferes with the normal function of the sarcoplasmic reticulum. The inflammatory immune cells migrate to the muscles to assist in repairing the muscle. And these immune cells stimulate nerve endings, which basically creates that pain that you feel, which is associated with DOMS. Now, just because you've experienced DOMS doesn't mean that you're going to make crazy amounts of gains the next day or whatever. It's not a measure of progression of growth. You can build just as much muscle without experiencing DOMS pretty much at all if it's done, if you're at like the extreme mild end anyway. You kind of do want to be somewhat in the middle because you don't want to, the problem is not trying to avoid it completely. The problem is just trying to not overdo it to where it lasts 5-7 days, because that means you've overworked it too much. The best thing to do really is just to try to experiment with different intensities and try to keep it at a 48-hour mark. All right, so basically try to keep it within a 48-hour recoverable volume. And if it exceeds that, then that means you know you're probably doing too much. All right, if you start feeling pain 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days out, you know that you're obviously overworking them. If you can be right around that 48-hour mark and by the time the 3rd day comes, you're pretty much cool, then yeah, you're pretty much good. You know, you probably want to follow a format that's comparable to that. Now, the reason why the volume and intensities need to be cut back when you're doing these types of, because at this point, pretty much everyone knows that I recommend for most people to be doing full body 3 days a week. And it's very difficult to try to work the muscle groups several times a week when you're training at such a high intensity, whether that's relative intensity, which is basically how hard you happen to be working, not really the absolute intensity, which would be like percentage of 1 rep max. And the volume itself, those things, you can't go all the way to max or to that real high upper end of the threshold when you're performing those movements 3 days a week at about 48 hours apart or every other day. It's very difficult to do that. And so you need to cut back on that. You gotta dial back on that, because if you don't, eventually you're gonna reach what we refer to as an overreaching state. An overreaching state is basically the state right before you get to overtraining. All right, so overreaching, that's when you start to regress in your lifts. You're not feeling too well. There's several symptoms that comes with that, but that's the state right before you get to overtraining. Overtraining state, you're gonna need to get the doctors involved, right? And so overreaching is not a good thing. Overreaching that's consistent, if you're consistently overreaching, week after week after week after week, if it lasts that long, you eventually lead to overtraining. All right, you want to cut that out. All right, that's gonna be short-lived. Your career is gonna be short-lived working out if you train in that manner where it's just like you feel as though you have to train at such a max high intensity on the volume or the relative or absolute intensity rather. It really doesn't matter. You're gonna need to kind of go back and forth between both because you're just not gonna be able to sustain at such a high threshold every other day. It's just not gonna work like that, which is why most of the time you'll see most programs are designed where the intensities vary, which is, of course, once you start getting a little bit more advanced. But those will be the reasons why the volume and the intensity needs to be cut back so that you don't continue to keep experiencing that DOMS past the 48-hour mark, because you're really not growing much beyond the 48-hour mark anyway, just because the protein synthesis kind of dies down at that point. It's constantly going up and down all the time, all day. But when you work out, that's when protein synthesis it gets re-elevated. Now, of course, some of you may or may not know, but for naturals, protein synthesis only stays elevated for up to 48 hours. That's given that you're actually working out to the proper intensity where it can stay elevated for 48 hours. Anything beyond that, you're pretty much not growing. So you want to be very wise to make sure that you don't overwork it to the point where you're experiencing DOMS, like I said, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days out, because you're not growing past that 48-hour mark anyway. So all of the rest of that pain that you feel, you're not growing from it. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense to work yourself all the way to that point unless you happen to be working the muscle group once a week. Then obviously, yeah, you could do that because it's only being worked once a week. And technically, you're never really working the muscles once a week anyway. They're always kind of being hit indirectly, but that's another video, another topic. But anyway, these are the reasons why the volume and the intensity needs to be fluctuated when you're doing the full body, every other day type of thing, okay? Now you could do, they have some models where Mondays may be 80%, Wednesday may be a 90%, Friday may be 100% if you happen to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or you could be doing Monday 100%, Wednesday 80%, Fridays 90%. In this way, you can make it to where you're not training at that max intensity at all times, so that you can actually recover from the training and continue to still make gains, which is what you want. That's what everybody wants, but it's going to require you having to cut back and being able to modulate the volume and the intensity the right way so that you don't go into that overreaching state. You start experiencing crazy amounts of DOMS, because that is going to affect the training. You're not going to be able to train in the same manner that you would normally train in, or that you need to train in order to make the kind of results that you want. And another thing is that we have to get back to the point where in training and working out, scratch that, in training, we don't really want to say working out, in training, we have to get to the point where we focus on stimulating muscles, not just annihilating. That's something that Lee Haney often says several times, is that you should stimulate, not annihilate the muscles. And the whole idea of annihilating muscles, just breaking them down tremendously, is really giving a bad view of this, of what working out really stands for. And you gotta get that out of your head. You have to get away from that. your muscles don't take as much to stimulate, especially if you're a beginner trainer. Your muscles don't take that much at all. That's why I get like so frustrated. I get a little bit annoyed when I see beginners or novices that are doing like 4, 5, 6 different exercises, you know, per body part and crazy amounts of volume, because you don't need that much to stimulate your muscles. You need to stimulate your muscles to grow. You don't need to annihilate. Annihilation is associated with crazy amounts of DOMS, feeling a whole bunch of pain. If you're walking around being in pain all day, there's something wrong, because this is supposed to make your life better. Like, we're supposed to be getting better from training. We're not supposed to be constantly in a broken down state. Now, the training to annihilate concept is going to lead you in that broken down state to where every day you're going to be in pain, you know, and eventually you're going to get burnt out. You're not going to feel like training. You got to be able to cut that switch. You got to be able to kill the ego, kill the pride, and know how to modulate the intensity so that you can continue to train, as it is a lifelong endeavor. I mean, I'm sure at this point everybody would agree that. So again, that's what you really need to stick to. Just stick to trying to stimulate your muscles. Don't try to annihilate them. Trust me when I tell you, you're not going to get any more results. If anything, you're going to regress. You're not going to progress. So you want to keep it that way. You want to remember that working out is only 1/3 of the process. The other 2/3 is coming from your rest and your nutrition. So if your rest and your nutrition is not on point, you're not going to get results anyway. All right, and this is something that people seem to keep missing. The working out is only one part of the process. That's it, just one part. You still got 2/3 that have to be, that you still got to make sure you focus on. And so that's why you stimulate your muscles, and then you make sure that you allow your muscles to rest. You feed them the right nutrition so that they can grow, and then you go back into the gym. You stimulate by breaking them down a little bit again, and then again you go through the same process. It's a cycle, and you want to make sure that you stay within that cycle the whole time so that you can continue to grow. That's the idea. But you know, of course, what's commonly what happens, you know, in the community today is just a lot of guys, they violate the cycle by throwing in cycles of other stuff, you know what I mean? Which, I mean, if that's your preference, that's your preference, but that's, you know, I mean, that's not what I'm into, that's not really my thing. But I'll just say again, you want to make sure that if, I mean, even with, you know, drug users, I mean, they still got to go through the same cycle too. You still got to go through the cycle of working out, resting, nutrition. Of course, they can kind of get around the rest area depending on the drugs that they happen to be using. But for the most part, yeah, everybody has to go through that cycle. For naturals though, it's even more critical and concrete because you don't have all that extra stuff in your system to help you recover a lot faster. So you always have to be thinking about stuff like this so that you don't lead to getting a whole bunch of injuries or just getting burnt out from training, which happens so often. It happens so often you get burnt out from training because you're just training at such a high intensity, 5 days a week, just, you know, 6, 7, 8 months of the whole year straight, if you can even last the whole year straight, which I seriously doubt it. You know, eventually you'll get burnt out and you'll have to take time off because it's not going to be enjoyable to you anymore. You know, modulate the intensity. It's okay to come in there, do a couple light reps if that's all you got for the day. You know what I mean? You don't have to feel like you have to go all the way to, you know, balls to the wall, whatever the case is. You don't have to do that. You know, you really don't. You can come in, you can train, and there's so many advanced ways to go about this. It's too much for this video to even cover. It really is. Is a science behind how you're supposed to progress and programming the right way to make sure that you can continue to keep progressing while at the same time modulating the intensities and things like that. Like I said, it's way too much for this video for me to even get into it. But again, just gauge things by, you know, how much soreness you happen to be feeling, you know, in terms of how many days out. Like I said, it really shouldn't be going past that 48-hour mark. If it is, you're doing too much, you need to dial it back. Dial it back because again, for novices, y'all do need to be training full body 3 days a week. And if you start to become more advanced, yeah, you might need to move to, you know, maybe a push-pull type, you know, routine twice a week or whatever the case is. I'm not saying that's wrong, but until the base is built, you pretty much shouldn't be going in the gym doing 2 or 3 body parts per week, you know, or 2 or 3 body parts in a day. I don't really agree with that. That's not my belief system. That's not my stance. But anyway, you know, sorry to go off on all of that kind of stuff. I just had to, you know, get the stuff out. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really tried to educate you guys the best that I can on this no pain, no gain, or, you know, what DOMS is associated with and how that can, you know, affect your lifts, how that can affect you. It's not necessarily a good indicator of a workout. It could just really just let you know that you're doing too much in your workout. Hopefully I've explained this the best way possible. If not, put something in the comment section, let me know so that I can maybe do another video and explain it in a better way so that y'all really understand this, because I really want y'all to get this. This is extremely critical to the longevity of your training career. It really is. If you don't get this, you could possibly get hurt, get burnt out, and then you'll be in that stage where you're constantly being on and off from the gym forever. And I'm really trying to make it to where y'all don't do that, because I'm telling you, you do not want to get in that kind of system. You want to stay very consistent, because consistency is how you get big. Consistency mixed with progressive overload is how you get big. There's just no escaping it. All right. Well, anyway, like I said, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I'll be coming at y'all doing another video soon. Make sure y'all like this video. I need y'all to click them likes, baby. Click all the likes. Why? Because I need that YouTube algorithm to pick me up so that my videos can keep going out there, and I can keep trying to get more videos out there and trying to educate y'all the best way I can. All right. Like I said, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be coming at y'all here with another video very, very soon. Y'all take it easy. Peace.